Welcome back, guys. I bring to you another video. This is going to be a May reading wrap up. In the month of May I read 3 books. 2 were contemporary fiction, 1 was fantasy, and 1 book I did not finish. Very surprising book. So yeah, let's begin with all the books that I read. So the first book that I read in this month was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. So this book basically follows a 16-year-old teenage boy Jacob who travels to this remote Welsh island after the death of his grandfather. His grandfather died mysteriously and very violently, and before dying he sort of left certain cryptic cues and stories with Jacob, and these stories had long been dismissed by him as fairy tales. However, once he travels to this remote island, he discovers it for himself, the truth that entailed all his grandfather's stories. Okay, so this book is a young adult fantasy, and I discovered something for myself, that the reading tropes that elicited very exciting responses from me when I started reading initially do not satisfy my reading appetite any longer. So I had hoped to enjoy this book immensely because I had eyed this book since the time I had started reading, but now I realize that I might have grown out of young adult fantasy a little, and I don't really know if it's a sad thing or a thing to be joyous about. However, I'm always in the process of striking balance, so I'd like to give this book the benefit of doubt because it's the first book in a series, and so maybe a little leeway is considerable. However, who am I kidding? The book also has certain very amusing parts. For example, for me, the time travel part and the time loop part that the author explores throughout the book was very amusing to read. And with that concept, the author also poses a really poignant dilemma, I'd say. For if you were given a choice, would you be alive but live in past, or choose your future but be uncertain of your life? I think this is one of the underlying themes of the book as well. The second book that I read was Lives Not Lived by Monica Bhatti. Alright, so Lives Not Lived is a debut novel which explores the harrowing realities of child marriage, sexual abuse, and the raw depiction of the soul-crushing impact patriarchy has on women. So I picked this book in wake of my goal to read more Indian authors, and if this is Monica Bhatti's debut novel, I don't know what else she has in store for all of us. The book's USP for me was the sheer relatability in all the aspects of the book, be it character names, the places mentioned in the book, the cuss words used, the rituals described. All of it felt so next door to me, and this feeling of relatability made my resolve to read more Indian authors even stronger. Moreover, the sensitivity of the topics that have been explored in this book, plus the female protagonist, make this book something that I'd latch onto naturally as well. So yeah, it was a very good read by a debut novel. I was amazed by it. The last book that I read this month was A Woman on a Suitcase by Shazaf Fatima Heather. Yeah. It is a very witty and at the same time a very poignant novel on the complexities of marriage, autonomy, and self-discovery. So basically in this book we follow Seema Haidari. Seema Haidari is a newlywed woman living in Karachi, and she finds herself being evicted from her husband's home on slightest of disagreements. However, the third time she is being thrown out of her home by her husband, she faces a very pivotal choice, and that is whether to conform to the expectations of her husband and his family, or to tread on a journey of self-liberation and self-discovery. So this book is a plain simple story of breaking free from manipulative relationships and taking the reins of your own life in your hands. And I guess this is a perfect book for beginners, someone who's looking for a book that is easy to read but also has a certain thematic depth. I think this is the perfect book you should read. So those were the 3 books that I read in the month of May. However, the first book that I picked up in the month of May was a book that I did not complete, and that was Four Winds by Kristen Hanna, and it breaks my heart saying that I did not finish a Kristen Hanna book. I think nazar lag gayi hai, because I was raving about how I love her writing style, how I love her book, she's my author by author, and the next book that I pick of hers, I end up not completing it. And the only reason I think I gave it a fair shot, I read half the book. It was 400 something pages. I read 200 of it. Could not continue further because I felt the pacing became stagnant. I could not see where the book was going. It was just revolving around the same thing again and again. And I also get that that might have been the author's choice to drill a certain point into the reader's head that life was tough. But rallying upon it again and again without any escalation in the storyline felt a little stagnant to me, and that is why I sadly did not complete that book. So yeah, that was my reading update for the month of May. Tell me if you have read any of these, and please feel free to pick any of these books if you find them interesting. So yeah, that's it for the video. Meet you next time.